From traffic lights to the cameras surrounding us, the world is constantly adjusting to new advancements in technology. To learn where our cities are headed, I met with technological innovation and growth strategy expert Benson Chan. I met Chan at the CES Electronic Trade Show in Las Vegas. Working in a field that only emerged following the 90s tech boom, Benson is accustomed to the high-tech bleeding edge. Amongst the hubbub and commotion of the world's largest tech expo, he discussed how innovation will continue shaping our cities and the world of tomorrow. Benson, what I find fascinating about the type of work you're involved in is that 30 years ago, there wasn't somebody in your sphere. So how do you kind of like set out and then end up in the kind of work that you're doing today?
I think, that's a good question. I think life, like everything else, you just evolve and change and transform. So along the way, I think I had a few good breaks, a few areas where I thought, this is a kind of interesting area that I should pursue. And one thing led to another. It wasn't like I started out and said, I'm going to do smart cities or I'm going to do IoT or innovation. I just started off as engineering. And somehow along the way, I think I got a few doors open for me. I got lucky. I said, I'd like to do more of this and less of this. And it kind of steered my career a little bit. And some good things happened along the way, and it just happened. It wasn't like there's a secret formula or recipe that I have, right? It just happened. And I've just been blessed to be living in Silicon Valley, where you kind of get exposed to some of these types of innovations on a continuous basis. So that's how I kind of ended up doing what I'm doing. And it's probably not the end of it, probably not the end of the journey. It'll just be another stepping stone in wherever that journey is going to lead to.
After over 25 years of growing tech companies, including the giant Cisco in California's Silicon Valley in 2016, Chan co-founded Strategy of Things, a new age tech company specializing in the planning and creation of smart cities, communities, and industrial facilities. In the field since nearly day zero, his work experience has seen him guide the growth strategies for Fortune 500 companies and small startups alike. With this experience, today he's utilizing artificial intelligence and new age solutions to answer environmental issues and sprawling problems of today's urban cities.
I think the worst thing that we could have done was call it a smart city. Right? I think it's just like your smartphone, people have certain expectations. But really what we're using technology for is to deliver outcomes that you and I, who are residents of cities, that we expect to see. We expect to see a good quality of life. We expect to send our kids to good schools. We expect when we walk down the street that there's a lot of businesses that we could shop at. So those are the day-to-day things. Technology can help enhance some of that, maybe bring in some things, but it shouldn't be so obvious. It's very transparent, right? So a smart city is what I call a responsive city, a city that's responsive to your needs, your family's needs, to a place that you want to live, right? A place that you can make home, a place that you feel safe, and a place that you can go out. And if you want to go down the street to play basketball, there's something that you could do, and you could do it safely. If something happens, the police or public safety will respond very quickly, right? So a city is just a smart city is a city that I would say that enhances your quality of life, right? It makes it better, and maybe the technology shouldn't be so obvious that you can see it. It should be built into the background, transparent to you. It's just something that you expect.
So technology is driving transformation, but who's driving this? Are there city planners sitting down and saying this, or are there visionaries saying, look, if you use these technologies, you can make the city in a way that, or is it actually the residents in the cities clamoring and saying, hey, what's driving this?
I would say that there's some smart city projects you hear about, and it's driven by a visionary leader, a mayor, a politician, or a city administrator somewhere. But that's very rare. That's very unusual, in fact. I would say a lot of it is driven by citizens that are asking for certain things, right? But they don't know to ask for a smart city. They just says, I wish my streets were safer, or I wish the bus would run more frequently, or I wish the bus would go where I wanted it to go. Right? So they're telling the city these things, and if a city's responsive, they'll do those things. Right? But that said, change is hard. Right? Cities are not in the business of innovation. They're not in the business of transformation. They're in the business of providing reliable services, right? Consistent service that meets the needs of their citizens, right? More or less. Now, the last few years was a little bit unusual that it drove a lot of change, and that change agent was COVID. COVID-19, the pandemic, has changed the way people have done things. You look at a lot of cities now, people are used to the idea of working from home. Right? That didn't happen before. Right? So all of a sudden that changed. People are used to the idea of going to the restaurant and picking up food instead of eating there. Right? So that's fundamentally have shifted. People have said, because I'm working remotely, I can work from anywhere. So they moved out of the cities. They moved into other places. So those things are driving the changes. So when people move out of the cities, for example, all of a sudden the cities will think, okay, well, what do I do now to make up for that economic base that's left? So they've got to start thinking about innovation. And that's some of the things that's been happening. Right? So now they're thinking, how can I innovate? How can I transform my cities to accommodate the new normal, the new reality? So I would say, despite the term smart cities, despite some of the innovation that's going on in the past, we're really innovating faster now than we have before. And a lot of it is driven by this one major change agent, the pandemic.
A change in our habits can signal a change in our future cities and how they operate. Examples of this can be seen in our world even today. COVID-19 saw exponential growth in the utilization of delivery services. In 2020, Uber Eats saw growth jump 150%, while market leader DoorDash grew by over 200%. During the year of lockdown, these changes produced explosive growth in the job sector. Surrounded by the latest global innovations in America's flashiest city, I wanted to learn which one of these breakthroughs may be the next big revelation on how we live in our new world. Benson, as you walk through here, you see smart this, smart that. What excites you when you walk through here?
So I think what's most exciting to me are the things that I don't see here. I don't see the cybersecurity standards or the interoperability standards that were put in some of these products that make them all work together, that make people produce the same different products from different companies, but allow them to produce more of these products. So a lot of work that the industry has done behind the scenes to get these products out so that more and more companies can use them, more and more companies can build them out there, sell them to dealers, people feel comfortable about using it. So that's what I don't see. I don't see a lot of the behind the scenes standards work, the cybersecurity work to make those products safe for us to use. I don't see that physically here. I see it embedded into the products. And that's what's kind of exciting, right? Because that creates opportunities for manufacturers to create more of these types of products that people can buy, and people like us as consumers feel safe about using them. So those are the things I don't see physically in here, but they're embedded into the products, right? So that's what's exciting. When you look at a place like this, you see a wide variety of products, right? And it's because they incorporated some type of standard, some type of framework, some type of cybersecurity that makes them appealing to the marketplace. Right? And that's different, that's new.
So one thing you don't see is the virus itself, COVID, but it's changed everything, hasn't it? Talk to us about that.
Sure. I mean, I think generally things change at its own time scale, right? It's driven by certain parameters and certain things, and it's kind of organic. But all of a sudden, COVID overnight changed the way we live, the way we worked, the way we pick up food. Right? All of a sudden, that kind of change, a sudden change forced us to adapt. And we had to learn how to adapt. Right? For example, people work remotely now. They found ways to make working from home work. Because they can't come into the factories, they had to monitor some of the operations remotely, right? And all of a sudden, it's a whole new way of doing things that they haven't thought of before. Someone once said, I can't remember where I saw it, they said COVID-19 was the chief transformation officer and went and forced change because we had to overnight. Right? most change usually happens in an organic manner. It happens slowly. It happens over a period of time. But overnight, COVID-19 changed everything.
With much of the developed world cities aging and many of the developing world still growing, infrastructure and development bills are being passed the world over. In the United States alone, $65 billion will be spent reshaping the cities, roads, and railways that connect them, vying for futuristic efficiency and longevity. Meanwhile, China spent over $350 billion in future-proof city building by 2020, amassing the world's largest high-speed rail and longest road network in the process. Though new smart cities can be created from the ground up, in some parts of the world, others with longer established urban networks will have to trickle into their advancement. Therefore, Chan says we need to change how we think about smart cities.
They think that it's all technology-led, right? But smart cities are not about technology, but about people, right? So really, when it's all said and done, despite my having a technical background, we're in the business of people, right? We sell to people, we work with people, we live with people. Smart cities are no different, right? We use technology, but we help people. We drive outcomes for people, right? And so we're in the business of people, right? Despite the idea of smart, right? And it gets people excited because technology, especially coming out of Silicon Valley, people get excited about technology. So they think a smart city is really technology in advance, but in some ways it is, but it's very transparent. So that's one misconception. The other area where I think people get wrong is to build a smart city, they think it's the responsibility of a city alone, right? But a city is an ecosystem, right? So there are cities that are responsible for certain things, the street lights, the streets, the garbage cans and pickups, maintaining the infrastructure. So that's in the city responsibility. But businesses operate in the city, right? So they provide services for people, taxi cabs, for example, right? So you think about Uber. Uber is a company, it's a rideshare company, but they're not affiliated with the city, but they operate in the city, so they create outcomes. Then there are communities, downtown business districts, universities, tourist districts in the city, or housing developments, multi-tenant units, complexes at airports. So those are mini smart cities. They're operated within the city. So there are also smart city players that can contribute to building the smart city. And then there are people like you and I who live in the city. We could provide services. Right? For example, our Ring doorbell, right, that video feeds can go to public safety, right, to view. So we're also, you and I are also smart city creators and service providers.
Legal agencies worldwide have begun the widespread use of CCTV cameras since London began installing them in public places as early as 1975. Today, dozens of cities from Paris to Beijing and New York City rely on vast networks of public security cameras, some even utilizing artificial intelligence. With intelligent technologies entering every aspect of our daily lives, the data we generate using it has grown in both economic and legal value, raising privacy concerns and attracting the attention of authorities. In 2020, Airbnb was forced to turn over data from users in New York City as the Big Apple looked to enforce its crackdown on illegal subletting, while in Paris, action to regulate is also underway. Back in the old days, the cops would go and knock on doors and ask people, "Did you see anything?" Nowadays, you look at technology. I mean, you look at any of these police procedural shows. It's like, do we have CCTV footage? It's really kind of changed how investigations are done. But then there's also this other piece of this where there are cameras looking at us all the time, all the where. We don't even know if they're in here. Yeah. And then it gets into this, it's about, what about me and me personally and data and all of this sort of, all of these kind of arguments. How do you weigh in on that? And what are some of the things that people should be concerned about? And, and are those overblown in some respects?
I would say that, where there's a saying, right? Where there's smoke, there's fire. So people have those concerns because in the past, I think that there were some very legitimate reasons for it. So I think we shouldn't dismiss that those concerns. I would say there are some rare concerns. A lot of times in the world of innovation, we're so far ahead with the technology, we're ahead of the regulations, we're ahead of the policies, right? And so people take advantage of it, or maybe they didn't know, and they say, oh, I could do this, and they do it, and they say, oh, well, maybe we shouldn't have done it. The fact that there's cameras recording isn't the real issue, right? The real issue is what are you going to do with that data? Do I trust the people who's going to take that data and do something with it, right? And I remember talking to a vendor once, and they were talking about facial recognition cameras, and they said, oh, well, we could use these technologies to lower crime or prevent crime. And I said, well, the problem is that it's not the technology. The issue is that the people that could use this technology, the city that could use your technology, they don't want it. The cities that don't need your technology, they want it, right? And it's because there's an inherent trust of the data, right? Of how is law enforcement going to use this data? How are people going to use this data, right? And where they don't, in the cities where they don't have a good relationship with law enforcement, they don't trust the data. But in the cities where they have good relationships with the law enforcement, they trust the data, right? And so beyond the technology, law enforcement needs to go out and rebuild trust in the community, right? So it's not necessarily the technology, it's really the technology's gotten ahead of the trust building exercise that communities need to do. And that's one of the fundamental flaws with oversimplifying by saying technology is no good, right? Really, we just got so far ahead of these other things that also need to happen in parallel, right? As you get more data, you need to understand what the data means and how you're going to use it and how you're going to prove you can use it in a responsible manner.
All right. Thank you so much. It's been a great conversation. Appreciate it.
Thank you.